The Earth will soon experience a devastating nuclear apocalypse in the future. The majority of people and animals are killed by a radiation blast, and all life on the surface of the Earth is wiped out. The survivors take off for the Earth-orbiting space stations that were built at the time for space exploration. Currently, 97 years have passed since the end of the world. The space stations have merged to form a single, vast civilization known as the Ark. Due to population growth and resource shortages, living conditions are not ideal on Ark. People think that after 100 years, humans can go back to their original homes on Earth. Even though there are only 3 years until the big day, the Ark's inhabitants' lives are in danger due to a lack of resources. Therefore, strict guidelines must be followed by the Chancellor and the Board of Governors in order to immediately reduce the population. Because of this, every crime committed on the Ark carries a death sentence. However, if a person under the age of 18 is found guilty, they are imprisoned in a box-like facility. Clark Griffin is a prisoner who is one of these. She is the daughter of Chief Engineer Jake and Chief Medical Officer Abby of the Ark. She should have privileges because both of her parents serve on the Board of Governors, but she is currently incarcerated like any other criminal. 2 guards suddenly storm in and force her to wear a wristband. She is forcibly brought out with the other prisoners. For a brief moment, Abby stops them so that Clark can be assured that everything will be fine. She's about to touch down on the planet. It turns out that 100 inmates from prisons are being sent to the surface of the Earth to test whether it is habitable. They could perish right away from radiation or the harsh climate, but the group has no choice. Clark meets Wells, the Chancellor's son and her childhood best friend, on the ship. He purposefully committed a minor crime in order to board the ship and be with her. Clark, however, doesn't value the gesture. It turns out that her father has passed away, and Wells is somehow to blame. A video of the Chancellor asking them what they should do when they land is playing on the monitor as the ship touches down. They are instructed to proceed to the former Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center, which has 300 people's worth of water and supplies inside. The ship quickly enters the atmosphere of the Earth and crashes to the surface. After rising from their seats, 2 people pass away instantly. The person who urged them to stand up, Finn, is still alive. Then Bellamy and Octavia, the siblings, are introduced to us. Because it is forbidden to have a second child on the Ark, Octavia's mother kept her hidden under a table for the first 16 years of her life. When she was apprehended and their mother was launched into space, Bellamy and Octavia were split apart. After a while, the sister and brother reconcile. Bellamy immediately claims the position of leader and unlocks the ship's door. The group is greeted by greenery and a landscape covered in vegetation as they take a step back in anticipation. For the first time in their lives, they sprint outside to their house. Clark pulls out a map as the group is having fun and notices that they have been dropped off a few miles away from Mount Weather. Finn, who is curious about what she is doing, follows her. Kane, one of the council members, provides an update on the 100's health back on the Ark. They have lost all contact with the prisoners as a result of the crash, making it impossible to keep track of their whereabouts. However, the wristband still allows for the measurement of their vital signs. They notice that 2 people died during the landing, but a radiation blast and a simple accident are not a plausible explanation. On the ground, things are beginning to heat up in the meantime. The others do not like Clark and Wells ordering things around, but they are determined to reach Mount Weather as soon as possible. Contrary to them, Bellamy and Octavia assert that they should trek up the mountain and return with the supplies. Instead of the working class, they want the privilege to carry out the labor. Wells gets into a fight with a man named Murphy and breaks his leg before Finn breaks up the altercation. Bellamy admits to Octavia that he committed a terrible sin in order to board the ship. The governors would never forgive him if they learned about it, so they would have to take precautions to live on the ground. Clark also says that if they remove their wristbands, Ark residents will believe they are dead and won't search for them. Bellamy can now force everyone to remove their bands and start his own new civilization, which is good news for him. Following that, Octavia, Finn, Clark, and their friends Monty and Jasper went in search of the mountain. A short while later, they come across an animal and stand in awe of it before realizing it has 2 heads due to mutation. Abby learns that the Chancellor has been shot while she is still on the Ark. She and her medical staff use more blood and anesthesia than is appropriate for a citizen to receive in an effort to save him. The fact that Bellamy shot the Chancellor is revealed to the guards, which explains why he doesn't want the officials to kneel down. Kane wants to kill off hundreds of Ark residents and keep only those who are making a positive contribution to their society. They can extend the life of their space station by 3 years in this way. If more people are not killed, they cannot endure the current living conditions for more than 4 months. He intends to execute his idea now that he is the Deputy Chancellor. The expedition team, meanwhile, discovers a river and enters it. A strange creature that resembles a fish and a snake suddenly attacks Octavia. While the others divert the fish, Jasper leaps to her aid and saves her. Bellamy gives the order for everyone at the camp to burn their wristband at night. When Wells tries to stop him, he declares his dominance. He has now taken the helm of the 100. Bellamy and his henchmen force Wells to remove his wristband at night. Kane discovers that Abby used more blood than was necessary to save the Chancellor when she returns to the Ark. He requests that she be floated for the crime using his authority as the Deputy Chancellor. When the Chancellor shows up, they are just about to send her into space after putting her in the airlock. He apologizes and expresses gratitude for preserving his life. The team arrives at a river on Earth. Jasper leaps to the other side and discovers an old board directing them to the weather mount. But just then, a spear is thrown at him, seriously wounding him. To protect their lives, the others flee back to the camp. They hear Jasper's scream on the way to the camp and realize he is still alive after hearing it. When they return to look for him, he has already been abducted. Bellamy declares that there are no laws or rules at the camp, which causes a tense situation. Going off the rails, Murphy starts a fight with Wells. When the other group shows up, they only stop. Everyone is aware of the perilous grounders who abducted Jasper. They choose to exercise greater caution, but they are adamant about taking the wristbands off. The following morning, Clark, Bellamy, Wells, and Murphy embark on a search for Jasper. Bellamy has a gun, so they anticipate protection from the grounders. Then, a zero-gravity mechanic and Raven, Finn's girlfriend, are introduced. She learns that family members of prisoners are not able to visit them while they are incarcerated. Raven is a young woman who is fearless and ambitious. She makes it her mission to figure out what is wrong with the new rule after realizing something is strange about it. She sneakily enters Abby's lab but is apprehended en route. She notices that the prisoner has been sent to Earth after glancing at the screen showing their vital signs. She also warns Abby, who is now perplexed, that the 100s might be taking off the wristbands. This aids Abby's theory presentation at the ensuing council meeting. They decide at the conclusion of the meeting to postpone making any decisions for 10 more days in order to give the 100s a chance to provide feedback. They will have to kill more people on the Ark if they are unable to communicate even then in order for the others to survive. Octavia meets Monty once she returns to camp. Monty is a master of communication who is trying to establish relationships with the Ark. Jasper and he are best friends, and he hopes that he returns soon. Against her brother's orders, Octavia assists him with his task. While doing so, the other team discovers a waterfall while searching for Jasper. Wells is envious of the apparent growing closeness between Finn and Clark. The moment they discover Jasper's goggles, they understand he is nearby. They eventually locate him hanging from a tree with his wound being attended to. Bellamy steps in to save Clark from a trap in front of the tree. After taking down Jasper, a wild boar immediately attacks them. With the gun he stole from Bellamy, Wells shoots it to death. The group has now successfully rescued their friend and has enough food for the night. In order to return to the Earth and save the others, Abby plans to return to the Ark in 9 days and asks Raven to fix an old escape pod. Raven agrees, but only if she can bring Raven with her to the Earth. The 100 kill the animal at night and roast it for dinner. To get a bite, Bellamy forces people to remove their bands. Due to Bellamy's minions' fear of him, Finn manages to get food for both Clark and himself without getting theirs off. They then share a meal together. A flashback is cut into the scene. The Chancellor, Wells, and Clark's father Jake are watching an old football game. Jake stands up to check a report on system maintenance before leaving. Later, when he comes back, he informs Abby that the Ark's systems are failing and that they only have about a year left on life support. Jake wants to make sure that everyone is aware of what is happening so that they can prepare for the future. But Abby is adamantly opposed to the idea because it will spread panic. Clark overhears them conversing while they are talking. She is later with Wells, who observes that she is tense over something. Clark informs him that her father intends to defy the council's directive and inform the populace of their limited time left. Wells swears not to tell anyone because Jake would be labeled a criminal and floated if they found out. Later on that day, Clark approaches Jake and offers to aid him in his endeavor. But just then, the guards storm in and seize both of them. Since Jake is an adult, he is immediately floated, and Clark is put in jail for helping him. She assumes that her best friend revealed the secret that led to her father's death to his father. Jasper is back on the ground, but his condition is dire. He appears to have had medicine applied to his wounds by the grounders, but if proper medication is not given, he will still pass away. The others beg for him to die as he groans and whimpers in pain, except for the team that saved him, who makes every effort to improve him. Charlotte, a young child Clark meets, frequently has nightmares about the Chancellor killing her parents. She despises the Chancellor even more now that she has been detained for assaulting a guard. Jasper has been in the group's care for 3 days, but his condition has not improved. Although the majority of the campers want to murder him, Clark insists that there is still hope. She investigates the plant the grounders applied to Jasper in an effort to locate more of it. Wells, an expert in botany, determines that the reddish-colored seaweed was most likely discovered in a body of water. A place like that is one that Finn is familiar with and frequents. They come across an old car on the road with only its door sticking out of the ground. Later, after they have given Jasper's health top priority, they'll investigate it. They eventually locate the seaweed, but as soon as they secure it, a massive cloud of poisonous fog appears. Before getting into the car to save their lives, the trio flees. Bellamy and his henchmen have emerged to hunt somewhere else. He throws a spear after hearing a noise behind him only to see Charlotte standing in front of him. He includes the young girl in the search because he feels bad that she was sent with a group of prisoners. They abruptly come under attack from the toxic clouds as well. Bellamy saves both of them by bringing the young girl to a cave. However, he hears Adam, one of his teammates, yelling outside. Everyone at the camp enters the ship to shield themselves from the clouds. A bottle of alcohol is discovered by Finn in the entrapment location. The topic of Clark's father comes up as they converse. She holds Wells accountable for betraying her and killing her father. For the 100th time, Wells apologizes, but it is insufficient. Bellamy awakens a terrified Charlotte, displaying another side of himself. He helps her realize that in order to vanquish her inner demons and end her fear, she must do so. The cloud moves away the following morning, and everyone emerges. Wells doesn't mention Jake's death at all, which has led Finn to believe that he is concealing something related to the incident. He asks Clark to confirm that Wells actually reported her father, which led to his demise. Bellamy comes across Adam on the ground somewhere else. The poisonous fog is to blame for the dismemberment of his body. He begs Bellamy to kill him because he can no longer take the suffering. When Clark finally gets there, he hums a rhythm and stabs him in the neck to put an end to his suffering. The event is witnessed by Charlotte, who is deeply affected by it. When everyone arrives back at camp that evening, Jasper is taken care of right away. Bellamy, who believes Clark is a good person, wants to assist Clark in light of what transpired in the woods. Sometime later, Clark approaches Wells and inquires as to whether or not he informed his father of Jake's scheme. Wells doesn't say anything, which only makes Clark anxious. She understands that her mother reported her father, which led to his demise. Wells admitted responsibility and claimed he was only trying to spare her from suffering. While sobbing in his arms, Clark apologizes. Then, thanks to the medication he was given, we see Jasper regain consciousness. He is surrounded by the group, who are all making jokes about the circumstance. Outside, Wells is by himself as the vault is filled with laughter. He is approached by Charlotte, who requests permission to spend the night close to him. She suddenly stabs him in the neck while humming a beat that Clark previously used. Because her parents were floated by his father, she wants to kill him because that is the only way she can exorcise her demons. Thank you for watching. Why don't you consider subscribing while you're here? We have the best recaps around and would love to have you part of our community. Thank you and see you in the next one.